Hello everyone to the D Horizons tribe. As promised earlier in the week, today I've been chatting with Matthew all about accessible housing, and we're going to be sharing Matthew's top 5 tips on the topic. So without further ado, we'll dive into tip 1, which I believe was around self-confidence. Is that right, Matthew?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to try and come up with things that apply to everybody within a very kind of wide sector with lots of people with lots of different needs, and that's kind of the whole interview content really was about one size doesn't fit all. So it's quite difficult to sort of come up with things that apply to everybody. But one thing that does apply to everybody, I think, is that in the last 5 years, the world's attitude, social awareness of disabilities has skyrocketed, and you know, this isn't aimed at people who are fortunate enough to sort of have the wherewithal to get out and get among it. It's aimed at people who perhaps aren't quite so able to do that, and you know, pressing them to try and do that, because the world, as I see it, is a far more accepting place of people with disabilities. And I think where historically you may have met resistance or, you know, a perception that things aren't possible or aren't doable or you're sort of worse off, I think that has changed in a tangible way, and you should get out there and try and push. Yeah, no, well said. And I know when we first met about 5 years ago, just after the London Olympics, and that had a massive push towards disability being in the mainstream media, and it definitely rolled. I think Channel 4 did a fantastic job with their coverage of the Paralympics, because it put it into prime time, it put it in front of people, and suddenly people were like, oh, that's not too serious, you know, it's not as scary as we thought it was. Yeah, I think, as you said in the interview we did on the Public article, that really, you know, no one's coming at disability from a malicious, bad. No. I've genuinely never come across that in my life. But people don't know. Yeah, but even the word ignorance has a malicious connotation. It's a lack of understanding. But how can you possibly understand something that you haven't experienced? Absolutely. You know. So point 1. Really, so that's the first one, I think. And not to feel that there's going to be all horrible barriers and difficulties. Well, there are some barriers, but there aren't as many. I don't think there are as many as there were. Definitely. Yeah. Okay. So point 2 is around knowledge. Around if you're looking to get into housing, there's a responsibility to have some knowledge for yourself, right? Sure. I think the flip side of that normalisation that we spoke about, you know, in terms of disability, people with disabilities, is that you have the same responsibility as everybody else does to arm yourself with the knowledge that you need in order to be empowered to say to the local authority or housing association or OTs or whoever it is that you're sort of working with, your contact officers, you know, say, actually, look, this is what we need in order to live independently or fulfil whatever objective we're trying to fulfil at home, and go to those people armed with that knowledge. Don't expect or rely upon somebody putting it in front of you, and that's not meant to sound hard. That just is true. Yeah, and I think the more we do these top tip sort of videos, there's going to be similarities in every topic. So I'm just thinking with dating, right? Yeah. You know, the man or woman of your dreams doesn't swing through the window and say, here I am, baby, you know. It takes a lot of dating, a lot of effort. Sure. And I think similarly with housing, I know it's an amusing sort of parallel, but the truth of it is that the OT or the housing association won't come to you and read your mind that you need help. Well, they won't be able to read your mind because they haven't got the, you know, local authorities, housing associations, people that make provision for you know, housing for people with disabilities are in the most part able-bodied, purely because the majority of society is. So therefore, you've got to take your expert knowledge along to that particular party and say, well, actually, this is what I need in order to live independently, at which point you'll probably find that will be welcomed because, you know, it empowers people to actually be able to provide you with something that works. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when we talk about different types of disability, of course there are going to be people with a learning disability or developmental things like autism and Asperger's, and so there are ways of having advocacy and support to do that. But I think, you're absolutely right there, and I absolutely 100% agree. Anybody else that has a disability but it doesn't affect their capability of learning about a situation, there's no excuse.
Absolutely, sure.
So moving on to number 3, and there's a bit of a bridge on that one, but it was around being the sort of architect of the building that you would want to become your home.
Yeah, in terms of trying, if you can, it's sort of similar point to point 2, leading the professionals and the people around you that are there to help, leading them through something that you probably know more about than they do, in the nicest possible way, and saying, look, I live with this every day. I'm the one that has to get in the hoist or get in the wheelchair or not get in the bath or whatever other issue it is, and say, well, actually, in order to do that, this is what this is what I need to do, and if need be, you can, all of the other developers and house builders that I speak to about this, and I have spoken to a number of other developers and house builders on this because, we've done a couple of conversions and people, they've rung me up. It's not that they don't want to help, it's that they just don't know how to. Because they haven't got the expert knowledge. It's kind of, so if need be, just go straight to the house builders and say, look, this is my situation, because the perceived cost of those adaptations is driven by the fact that the government lay out loads of money to facilitate them happening. It's not driven by how much they cost. So, it's
Okay, cool. So we've done point 3. So a little recap of that is that the world's out there and open and a lot better than it was. Point 2 is the sort of responsibility to have the knowledge.
Yes.
Point 3, we've covered around the fact that maybe going with sketches and having an idea.
Just take something forward and or go, take something forward. Go directly to the housing association. Go directly to the builder if need be. Go, get through to somebody who can, help you drive it forward in a way that delivers something that you need. Yeah,
and then point 4, and I think there's clearly crossovers and overlaps of all of this. But we were just talking earlier about if anyone says no, particularly the local authority, what is your advice around when they get a no?
Yeah, I don't want to come across like I'm suggesting that any local authority would say no for any reason other than the fact that that's the answer that the computer spits out. You get a knockback because that expert knowledge isn't there, or you get a knockback because you don't, fit their preconceived idea of, it was mentioned in the interview, this wheelchair bungalow that we all talk about, and actually, it's like, would be wonderful for you, but wouldn't be wonderful for me. And therefore, it comes back to that one size fits all thing. So if you get pushed back because of a perceived one-size-fits-all approach to solving the problem, then you have to be firm on the fact that one size doesn't fit all, and this is what we need, and this is how we're going to do it, and take it forward.
And I think there's clearly lots of threads between all the points that have that overlap.
Sure.
But, I think you're right about don't give up, really. When things get tough, the overall sort of point is to keep on trucking, right?
Absolutely.
So the final point 5 is around the internal part of a house, the interior, and particularly the equipment that people may or may not.
Yeah, again, it's impossible to sort of give a tip to a wide community of people all that need different sort of things. What I would say is that long gone are the days where, in order to adapt the house for your requirements as a disabled person, you need bumpy white tiles, white plastic grab rails. You can use open market products for different purposes. We've just built a house in Norfolk for a couple who require tube peg feeding, and the original proposal was this sort of white melamine cupboards with the sort of chrome locks on, that sort of the kind of thing you get on a hospital ward. And we said, well, actually, why are we doing that? They're just going to make the person feel like they're sitting in a hospital ward, so why don't we just get some more kitchen units and make it match the kitchen, and it all kind of works together. So, you know, Hive we talked about, in terms of like the ability to kind of not have to sort of drag yourself into the hall and up to the thermostat, you know, and all of that stuff is probably becomes exactly the same for an able-bodied person as it does for a disabled person, and that's that normalisation thing again.
And that's
but
you know, golden goal, isn't it?
Well, that's it. Yeah, absolutely, and it becomes, you know, it all then just becomes you know, as best it can normal.
Cool. Well, I think that was the 5 tips we discussed.
Yeah.
We'll list them on below the video so people can have a look at them and sort of digest them in their punchy headings. But really, I think the overall point to take away is that there isn't a one size fits all. Every individual does need to know their own disability and the barriers and the solutions, and be confident to work with the third parties to look to work towards that solution. And
know that confidence will, know that confidence, you know, will, you know, today be met with a better response than perhaps it might have been historically, because the world is changing and, you know, everything's now, you know, easier.
Yeah, perfect. That's really good. Thank you for your time today.
No problem. Thanks for having us. Yeah, lovely to see you.
See you next time.